The city of Rome trembled in the grip of fire, its streets transformed into rivers of molten devastation. Smoke twisted into the night sky, carrying the screams of those trapped in the inferno. And through the chaos, one man's name would forever be synonymous with destruction: Nero. He occupies a notorious place in history, remembered for the murder of his half-brother, the deaths of his wives, the assassination of his mother after repeated failed attempts, and the brutal persecution of early Christians, including Saints Peter and Paul. But it is one image, so powerful it verges on legend, that haunts the collective memory: Nero playing the lyre as Rome burned. The story is seductive in its simplicity: a tyrant, detached and cruel, using the agony of his people as a stage for his artistic indulgence. If true, it would cement Nero's reign as one of the darkest in Roman history. Yet, as often happens in the shadows of antiquity, truth is more complicated than the stories told by his enemies. The emperor did not order the fire. He did not sit idly while the city turned to ash. And though he later oversaw construction that fueled rumors of vanity and cruelty, the flames themselves were not his doing. The fire ignited on the night of July 18th, 64 CE, in the bustling 11th district near the Circus Maximus. Tacitus, the historian, recounts how the first flames rose in crowded shops and wooden warehouses, quickly spreading with a force aided by dry summer winds. For 6 days and 7 nights, fire consumed 10 of the 14 districts of Rome, killing hundreds, displacing thousands, and leaving 2/3 of the city in ruin. Rumors spread faster than the fire itself. Nero's detractors were eager to assign blame, alleging that the emperor had either orchestrated the catastrophe or allowed it to unfold through negligence. The most damning claim was almost poetic in its cruelty: that Nero had watched from the safety of his palace, playing the lyre and singing of the fall of Troy, comparing Rome's devastation to the legendary tragedies of the ancient world. Such a tale was irresistible to posterity, a vivid symbol of imperial decadence. Yet Tacitus provides a different account. Nero, at 26, was away from Rome at his seaside villa in Antium, 50 kilometers from the city, when the fire began. Upon receiving news of the disaster, he immediately returned to the capital. Once there, he took direct command of the relief efforts, opening the Campus Martius and public buildings to shelter the displaced, allowing citizens access to his private gardens, and personally organizing aid. He offered cash incentives to rebuild homes and implemented stricter fire regulations, seeking to prevent future catastrophes. An arsonist, Tacitus implies, would hardly have risked his own safety to rescue those in peril. Still, human tragedy can be exploited, and Nero's actions were not free from political interpretation. The emperor seized the disaster as an opportunity for a vision long deferred: the construction of the Domus Aurea, the Golden House. Built on the ruins of districts destroyed by the fire, the palace became a sprawling complex of landscaped gardens, orchards, vineyards, an artificial lake, and opulent buildings adorned with gold and gemstones. While some evidence suggests the palace may have served the public in part, its magnificence provided ample fuel for senatorial outrage. Nero's rivals exploited the palace as proof of imperial vanity and moral corruption, using it to tarnish his reputation for generations. In the shadows of Rome's burning, a scapegoat was found: the Christians. Already unpopular and viewed as a threat to the traditional order, they became targets of Nero's wrath, or at least the narrative of his wrath. Tacitus records mass arrests, executions, and horrifying punishments, from crucifixions to being burned alive as human torches. The accounts are chilling, yet historians debate their scale, noting that early Christian writers may have exaggerated the horrors to cast Nero as the ultimate pagan villain. Still, some truth remains. St. Peter, the first pope, was executed during this period, and the site of his martyrdom became the foundation for the future St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. The Great Fire of Rome was a catastrophe, but it was also a mirror reflecting the ambitions, fears, and rivalries of the age. Nero, whether by design or necessity, harnessed the disaster to fulfill long-held plans, and in doing so, he provided his enemies with the ammunition they needed to erode his authority. The fire, though extinguished, left smoldering political tensions in its wake. Nero's later suicide in 68 CE and the ascension of the Flavian dynasty would see the event manipulated, exaggerated, and woven into a tapestry of lies that immortalized the emperor as a tyrant and a monster. As smoke cleared over Rome, the city lay in ruins, yet the flames had ignited more than just buildings. They had set the stage for betrayal, propaganda, and the reshaping of history itself. What followed would cement Nero's fate and the lines between truth, legend, and political. Amid the ruins of Rome, the air still thick with ash and the stench of charred timber, Nero saw not only destruction, but possibility. The city's devastation cleared a vast swath of land in the heart of Rome, creating the space for a project that had long existed only in his imagination, the Domus Aurea, the Golden House. It was not merely a palace. It was a vision of imperial grandeur that would dwarf every residence in the city. The complex rose like a phoenix from the ashes, an audacious statement of power and ambition. Its halls gleamed with gilded ceilings, its floors paved with exotic marble, and its walls inlaid with mother-of-pearl and precious gemstones. Gardens sprawled across terraces, orchards and vineyards spread beneath the sun, and an artificial lake shimmered in the heart of the city. Rooms were vast, echoing with the whispers of luxury, each designed to showcase the emperor's wealth and taste. Yet the Golden House, magnificent as it was, became a double-edged sword. For the common citizens of Rome, the palace offered some relief, public access to gardens and spaces where they could find solace among beauty after tragedy. But for the Senate, already suspicious of Nero's ambition and temperament, the opulence became a provocation. The destruction of homes and neighborhoods to make way for personal luxury was painted as the ultimate act of imperial hubris. The flames, which had claimed the city, were now blamed on the emperor's desire for grandeur, feeding the growing narrative of a tyrant indifferent to human suffering. This perception was not entirely accidental. Roman politics thrived on appearances and rumor. Nero's enemies seized the opportunity to turn reconstruction into propaganda. Suetonius and Cassius Dio, writing decades later under regimes hostile to Nero, emphasized the palace as a symbol of decadence and cruelty. The Golden House, they claimed, was proof that Nero had orchestrated the fire to clear land for his vanity. The story was vivid, easy to believe, and devastatingly effective. The truth was more nuanced. Nero had indeed taken advantage of the fire's destruction, but he also contributed materially to relief and rebuilding. Streets were widened, new fire regulations implemented, and incentives offered for the rapid reconstruction of homes. The fire, tragic and overwhelming, became a tool that allowed Nero to realize a long-held dream, while simultaneously testing the limits of political perception. Yet even the emperor's best intentions could not silence suspicion. The memory of the fire lingered, and the people's need for a scapegoat became evident. Into this void stepped the Christians, a minority viewed with suspicion and disdain by Roman authorities. The new sect, with its refusal to worship Roman gods and its insular rituals, became the perfect target. Tacitus describes mass arrests, brutal punishments, and executions. Christians crucified, thrown to beasts, or burned alive as human torches to illuminate the night. Whether these actions were a direct policy of Nero or a convenient narrative amplified by later historians is still debated. Early Christian writers, seeking to define their faith in opposition to pagan Rome, cast Nero as the embodiment of cruelty and oppression. Nevertheless, some events, such as the martyrdom of St. Peter, are widely accepted as historically accurate. In the aftermath of the fire, Nero's focus on the Golden House and the Christians intertwined, creating a narrative in which ambition, distraction, and persecution became inseparable. By rebuilding the city according to his vision, Nero not only reshaped the physical landscape, but also the political one. Senators, already distrustful, now had concrete evidence to allege moral corruption and tyranny. Each gilded hall of the Domus Aurea became a talking point. Each artificial lake a proof of extravagance, each vineyard a reminder of a ruler seemingly detached from ordinary suffering. The fire, which had destroyed so much, now fueled the narrative that would dominate Nero's legacy. For Nero, the balance between ambition and perception was delicate. The Golden House was both a triumph and a liability. While ordinary citizens benefited from new public spaces, the senators capitalized on their anger and fear. Nero's enemies used his reconstruction not merely to criticize, but to erode his authority, ensuring that history would remember him as a tyrant, regardless of his actual deeds during the fire. And yet, even as he walked the marble corridors of his new palace, Nero's world began shrinking. Political intrigue, public resentment, and the memories of a city still scarred by fire isolated him from allies. His power, once unchallenged, became increasingly fragile. The Christians, the Senate, and the narrative of his supposed cruelty all converged to make the emperor both a figure of awe and a target of hatred. The flames that had devastated Rome had done more than consume buildings. They had ignited a chain of events that would lead to Nero's downfall. In the coming months, the emperor would confront rebellion, betrayal, and a public increasingly ready to believe the worst of him. The fire had cleared space for a palace, but it had also cleared the path for history to judge him, harshly and forever. And in this fragile, smoldering city, the stage was set for a perilous question. Could Nero survive the wrath of Rome's elite and the shadows of his own reputation? The Golden House gleamed under the Roman sun, but within its walls, Emperor Nero faced a darkness far more dangerous than any fire. The Great Fire of Rome had left scars on the city and deeper wounds in the emperor's political standing. Senators, already bitter over Nero's disregard for their authority and his ambitious construction, now had more reason to fear a ruler who seemed unrestrained by tradition or morality. To them, the palace was not a marvel. It was proof of tyranny. Nero's enemies were many: provincial governors, ambitious aristocrats, and even military commanders began to conspire, each sensing weakness and the opportunity to claim power. The city's elite whispered of rebellion while the provinces bristled with unrest. One by one, uprisings ignited, a domino effect that would plunge Rome into the chaos of civil war. By 68 CE, the cracks in Nero's reign had widened into a chasm. The Roman legions in Gaul and Hispania proclaimed their own leaders as emperor, openly defying his authority. As revolt spread, Nero's confidence faltered. The same man who had once walked freely through Rome's streets, singing and playing the lyre, now moved in secrecy, haunted by betrayal and fear. Senators plotted against him openly, and those who had once been loyal turned into opportunistic predators. The emperor's name, already tarnished by rumors from the Great Fire and the construction of the Golden House, became a rallying cry for rebellion. Nero, whose power had once seemed absolute, was now cornered by the very forces he had sought to dominate. The emperor's final days were marked by desperation and isolation. Cut off from reliable allies and facing the advance of hostile forces, Nero fled Rome, moving through the city like a shadow. Rumors of his cowardice spread quickly. The man who had survived palace intrigue and political assassination attempts was now hunted by his own people. The paranoia that historians later ascribed to him in these days is difficult to separate from the reality of imminent collapse. Every step, every glance carried the weight of survival and the awareness of a legacy unraveling before his eyes. On June 9th, 68 CE, Nero faced the inevitable. Surrounded by a few loyal servants, the emperor chose to end his own life. His final words, whispered with both fear and defiance, reflected the tragic arc of a ruler caught between ambition and fate. What an artist dies in me. The city he had ruled, the citizens he had tried to protect and impress, and the empire he had sought to shape all bore witness to the fall of a man who had once seemed untouchable. Nero's death did not end the story. It transformed it. The senators, victorious in the aftermath, ensured that history would remember him as the tyrant of Rome, the madman who burned the city to satisfy vanity, the persecutor of Christians, the embodiment of decadence. Suetonius, Cassius Dio, and later Christian historians amplified these narratives, fusing rumor with reality and turning Nero into a symbol rather than a man. The emperor who had led relief efforts, opened his gardens to the homeless, and enacted new fire regulations became immortalized as a villain, his actual deeds overshadowed by the stories told by those who survived him. The Great Fire of Rome, the Golden House, and the persecution of Christians became inseparable threads in a tapestry of legend. Nero's ambition, his artistry, and even his survival instincts were rewritten as evidence of cruelty. In the centuries that followed, Christian authors cast him as the archetype of pagan evil, while Roman historians painted him as the ultimate cautionary tale of unchecked power. Yet beneath these narratives lay a more complex figure, a man shaped by political pressure, personal ambition, and the merciless mechanics of imperial Rome. Rome itself rose again from the ashes, rebuilt by the same citizens who had suffered most, yet always under the shadow of Nero's name. The city, transformed by fire and human will, became a monument not only to imperial grandeur but to the fragility of power. And in the annals of history, the emperor who once fled the flames, yet sought to harness them for his vision, would live on as a warning that ambition without restraint, perception without reality, and rumor without evidence can immortalize a man as much in infamy as in fact. As Nero's life ended in the quiet terror of his own making, Rome faced the challenge of memory itself. What is remembered, what is recorded, and what is imagined all collided in the story of the emperor and the fire. The city's ashes gave rise to both monuments and myths, and the emperor's shadow stretched across centuries, shaping perceptions of tyranny, decadence, and human ambition. But history is never truly finished. The flames that consumed Rome also illuminated a truth that would endure far beyond marble halls and gilded ceilings. Human memory is shaped not only by deeds, but by the storytellers who survive them. Nero's life, his reign, and the fire that engulfed Rome became a mirror, reflecting the desires, fears, and ambitions of those who outlived him. And the question that haunts every age: how much of history is truth, and how much is the legacy of those who tell it? The death of Nero did not bring peace to Rome. On the contrary, it opened a new chapter in which the emperor's life, deeds, and failures would be rewritten by the very victors of his demise. The Flavian dynasty, which rose from the chaos of the civil wars, seized upon the memory of the Great Fire as a political weapon. In the hands of Vespasian and his successors, Nero's actions were recast as deliberate cruelty, his ambition transformed into moral corruption. His legacy became a cautionary tale, a warning against unchecked imperial power, and a convenient tool for legitimizing the new rulers. Roman historians played a critical role in shaping this image. Tacitus, whose accounts are among the most detailed surviving records, walked a fine line between fact and interpretation. He acknowledged Nero's relief efforts and administrative actions, but also chronicled the rumors, scandals, and excesses that had come to define his reign. Suetonius and Cassius Dio, writing later under regimes hostile to Nero's memory, amplified the tales of decadence and cruelty. The palace, the Golden House, became more than architecture. It was a symbol of tyranny, a monument that stood against the people's suffering. In parallel, early Christian writers seized upon Nero as the embodiment of evil. The persecution of Christians following the Great Fire, whether exaggerated or partially accurate, provided a narrative frame in which the emperor became the archetypal enemy of the faithful. Stories of martyrs burned alive as torches, of Peter and Paul's executions, and of an emperor indifferent or actively hostile toward human life cast Nero into a mythic role that would resonate for centuries. In Christian memory, he was the symbol of pagan cruelty, the man who would stop at nothing to assert power over the innocent. These layers of narrative, the political, the religious, the historical, intertwined over time, creating a legacy both larger and darker than the man himself. By the time Rome itself became Christianized under Constantine and his heirs, Nero had become a character in a moral allegory, the tyrant who defied the gods, the villain who tormented the righteous, the artist of destruction who, legend said, played while Rome burned. The fiddle, or lyre, became shorthand for his supposed detachment, a single powerful image crystallizing centuries of rumor and propaganda. Yet beneath the legend lies the reality of a complex man. Nero was ambitious, artistic, capable of cruelty, but also a ruler who, during the fire, acted decisively to protect his citizens, to organize relief, and to rebuild a city in ruins. His Golden House, though extravagant, offered public spaces and amenities to ordinary Romans. His enemies exploited both the fire and his ambitions to craft a narrative of villainy. History, in Nero's case, became a battleground in which perception outweighed fact. The fire, the palace, and the persecution all converged to forge an enduring myth. Over centuries, Nero's story became shorthand for the dangers of unrestrained power and the fragility of reputation. He was the emperor who could destroy a city or be destroyed by it, the man whose name was inseparable from calamity, yet whose actions, when examined closely, reveal a far more nuanced and human figure. The Great Fire of Rome was a tragedy of city and empire, but it was also a tragedy of memory, a reminder that the past is often shaped as much by storytellers as by events themselves. Nero's place in history is a mirror of the forces that seek to define him. Political rivals, historians, and religious chroniclers all left traces that have merged into a single, enduring image of the emperor. He is remembered as a murderer, a tyrant, a persecutor, an artist indifferent to suffering. Yet in the shadows of these narratives, glimpses of the man emerge. The ambitious ruler, the visionary architect, the troubled son of a complex imperial family. Rome rose again from the ashes, and with it, Nero's story survived, twisted and reshaped through centuries of retelling. The myths of fiddles, of torches, of monstrous vanity persist because they capture something larger than fact. The tension between power and morality, destruction and creation, history and memory. The emperor who lived, ruled, and died in fire became immortal, but not simply for what he did. He became immortal for what he represented, the eternal human fascination with catastrophe, ambition, and the blurred line between villain and victim. And so, Nero's legend endures, woven into the fabric of Rome itself. Every reconstruction, every historian, every retelling adds a layer to his image. In death, as in life, he is both emperor and symbol, a cautionary tale of power's excess, a reminder that history is written not only by survivors but by those who have the will and the imagination to define the past. The great fire of Rome may have consumed the city, but it also ignited a story that would burn through the centuries, leaving an emperor remembered as the master of fire, the scapegoat of history, and the eternal warning of human ambition unchecked. Nero's Rome was destroyed, rebuilt, and remembered, but the emperor himself, half man, half myth, remains, an indelible figure at the crossroads of history and legend.